Hello, and welcome to Downcrawl solo campaign stream number 3. If you're joining us for the first time on this stream, what this is a live stream of the solo version of Downcrawl Second Edition. So if you're new to all that, let me just unpack that real quick. So Downcrawl is a tabletop role-playing game about exploring an endless underground that's filled with weird and fantastical places and peoples. It's initially a game from about 5 or 6 years ago. The new edition is just coming out now and is crowdfunding as of this week, finally. Yay. It's a total rewrite and revamp of the game, kind of from page one, turned into a kind of total rethinking of how the whole game works. And one of the cool parts of that is it now supports 3 play modes. You can play it with a traditional game master, you can play in a group of people without anyone being the game master, or you can play the solo version where it's just you having your own adventures. And that's the version that we're going to be showing on stream. So yeah, this is the 3rd episode of this. In the first episode, which you can find on the Twitch channel, these are all archived, we created a new world to explore totally from scratch. And there's a session 0 chapter in the book that helps you do that. We created a character called Ghost, who is a witch hunter, and we'll catch you up on how that played out and what that means as we get into this. And yeah, we sent him on some adventures. So in a second here, we'll go through the sort of opening procedure for starting a new session of the solo game, which will help us refresh our memory, or if you're new to the stream, catch up with what's been going on in the story. I want to do a real quick, though, show the page for the Downcrawl campaign. So we had an awesome first day where we hit our goal within the first 6 hours or so. That was incredible. We're at 40,000, just over 40,000 now, which is so cool to see. I'm so happy that so many people are excited about this game and the new version of it. It's just super gratifying to see. And yeah, it's been really great to finally open this page up and show off all of the cool stuff that's coming in the new version, the new art, all this different stuff. One of the things on this stream that I have been excited about getting to is that there are some cool things that I hadn't announced until this page went live that I wanted to show off on the stream, but I haven't been able to yet. And one of those in particular, I think we're going to look at today. So we've been playing with the Downcrawl deck, which is a deck of cards that kind of replaces rolling on tables in the book with the kind of easier method. But there's a second deck called the Even Deeper deck that has a whole second set of prompts that you can use to make your game kind of even stranger and even weirder. So that's super exciting. And I think we're going to use that deck on the stream today, which is super cool. So yeah, check this out if you haven't already. Like I said, it's so awesome to see the reaction it's been getting. And it's really cool to have the campaign finally launched and out there in the world. So yeah, if you're just joining us for the first time, just a brief explanation of my setup here. So I've got a camera pointed down at my table. I'm going to be playing the game in this space. This is the map we've been making of the world we created. And as I refer to that, I'll explain more about what's going on here. We have a list of dangers over here. There's only one and we crossed it out because on the last session we dealt with the danger we had. But that's kind of a list of things that are kind of chasing us or stalking us or causing us concern as our character goes on these adventures. And I have the Downcrawl deck here, which are these set of prompt cards. And as I play, we'll get into how these work. But the kind of core of the Downcrawl deck is that there are all of these different combinatorial prompts that are on the edges. So if you flip over the top card and align the colors, you can get a prompt like a terrain of vertical halls, or maybe we want to place, and we flip this over and we get a golden grove, or maybe a shunned guardhouse. Some of these have multiple options, and you can kind of align this symbol to get one of the prompts. So that's, as you can see, super fast. We'll be using that a lot as we play today. In the upper left of your screen, I've got a PDF of the rules, which just makes it easier for folks on the stream to read it than if I, was using the printed rule book. But I'll just be using the index to jump around to different sections of this as we need them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got a couple things off camera that I'll pull in as we need them. I've got some dice here. Six-sided dice are all you need to play Downcrawl, which is convenient. But yeah, let's get into it. And yeah, hi to folks in chat. Sorry, my my attention's a little scattered, so I don't always see messages immediately. Um, but yeah, great to have you here. So cool to see folks coming back and see some new folks too. So yeah, let's jump into this. So let me pull up my bookmarks here. So there's Downcrawl kind of divides things into a series of moves that cover certain situations, and this is an index to all of them. And in the whole book, there's kind of a lot, but you don't really need to worry about them all at once. I'm gonna jump us to one specifically for solo play called Resume the Story, which kind of helps you start up a session when you've been away for a while, which we've been gone for a week. So when you come back to a solo story after time away, do the following. Find or make a quiet, cozy table space. I have done that. I don't have a cup of tea this time, but I have some water, so my voice won't go totally parched, hopefully. Gather your supplies. I think I got all the stuff I need here. Okay, arrange your active story cards in front of you. So story cards are a thing that only exists in the solo version of the game that just kind of helps you track the plot threads and important people, maybe events that you don't want to forget about between sessions. You have a set of active story cards, but then you also have a story deck of things that might come back into your story, kind of maybe surprisingly. So yeah, let's start by doing this. So I've got my pile of stuff from last session, and on top, I think, should be my active cards. Yeah, so let's lay these out. And the rules say here to remember how each of these elements is relevant to the story you've been telling. So this works good for a recap. So yeah, let me... Oh no, actually this is my story deck, not my active story cards. That's how I arrange these. Okay, so I've got the story deck. I've got a map deck of all the places we've been and a folk deck of all the peoples we've met. We'll go through these in a sec and remember what we've created, but let's start with the active story cards. Okay, yeah, so first here we have Ghost, who is our main character. So Ghost is a... let's see here. Let me hold this up so people can see it. So Ghost is a mainspring hunter. So mainsprings, that's actually this next card, were a kind of people we created who are wind-up toys, and we decided they want to destroy witches, and we further investigated that and decided that was because witches actually use wind-up toys for menial labor. Maybe they burn them for kindling. They sort of exploit this group of people and don't really think of them as real and worthy of living their own life. So the mainsprings have a vendetta against the witches. And this moralizing tag, which we randomly generated for them, we decided came into that. They have this like ethical, moral duty to hunt witches. So Ghost, we decided to make a mainspring, and he's specifically a witch hunter. So that's kind of his thing. He's tracking down the witches who have done terrible things to his people. So Downcrawl can work either as a supplement to an existing game system, like you can play it alongside a D&D campaign, for example, or it has a built-in system called Sliver of Fate, which is what we're using for this stream. So briefly, Sliver of Fate is inspired by Fate, the role-playing game Fate from Evil Hat, if you know that, but it's kind of a more minimalist, streamlined version of that. But one of the things that it steals from Fate is the idea of your character having different approaches to how you can solve problems. So these are a little like stats. So there's 4 of them in Sliver of Fate: forceful, focused, flashy, and fast. And when you face a problem, we decide which of those approaches makes the most sense in this situation. So Ghost is good at the flashy approach and bad at the fast approach. And these paper clips are tracking which approaches have been marked, which means used. And once we have used all 4 of them to solve problems, we can clear these marks and earn a fate point, which we can then spend to influence rolls. So that kind of is incentivizing you to, want to sometimes tackle problems in ways you're not, the best at. Ghost also has 3 aspects, which are parts of his character. So the Crystal Doctrine is sort of a ethical code that he follows that's about, seeking justice and maybe other things. We haven't fully explored what that means. He's really the end of witches. He wants to see, he's really hell-bent on revenge. We started the second session with a flashback to, his village burning and all of the puppets who created him and raised him being taken away by these cackling witches. So very visceral for Ghost. And also Joy of Riddles. Ghost has a thing where he really loves riddles. Um, so that's Ghost, and that's the mainsprings. I like to keep the card for the folk of my character out with it, so I can just remember the sort of the non-character specific parts of it. Cool. So other active cards. So we have Esmer, who was the witch from that flashback. So she's a witch who creates monstrous sculptures out of mainsprings. Pretty creepy. Last session, she had laid a trap for Ghost because Ghost had heard that she's hiding in this place called the Crimson Wasteland and was on his way to catch her. And Ghost walked right into this trap. So she knows Ghost is coming. So that's a key thing for us to remember. We're in the middle of a journey. Ghost started in Catacomb City, and he's trying to get to the Crimson Wasteland. He departed somewhat unwisely without very much tack, which is kind of your primary navigation resource. And as a result of that, he got lost pretty soon. So this journey is not going super great. One thing I want to amend, if you did catch the last stream, there was a little bit of a rules change that I won't get into the details, but basically it just means we should have we should have X'd out this Winding Dunes box because we failed a roll there. So where we're picking up is kind of the last step of this journey is about to start. And finally, we have the volume card for the Crimson Wasteland. And the important thing here is that all we know about it is that it's a terrain type of wasteland. So these 5 other boxes, sometimes before you leave on a journey, you would kind of try to learn more or research a place, which helps you get to someplace. But Ghost just kind of set straight out, just ran right into danger. So he really has no idea what he's going to get into or what he's going to find there. And as we arrive there, we're going to generate this other information and learn more together about what this place actually is, where Esmer the Witch is hiding out. Cool. So those are our active story cards. I'm not going to walk through all the cards in the deck. I think that's the next... oh no, I guess it doesn't actually say the dude anymore. Yeah, I think I decided that takes too much time, but... One of the things you can do if you want is look through your decks and recall the other things you created. I won't do that today, but we have cool things like we created a folk called Road Beetles, so we might get more into those things. Cool. Recall your drive-in ventures. Again, that's pretty straightforward for Ghost. Excuse me. He is a hunter and he wants to hunt witches, so incredible. Review your notes from last time. So often in solo mode, you would be playing alongside a notebook that you'd be writing notes in. Because this is a live stream, there's not a notebook, but I did kind of watch the end of the last stream just before this to remember what was going on. So I'll bring us up to speed as we get into play here. And then finally, pick one active story card or volume detail to focus on. And focus is another move here. Alternatively, you might ask the story deck for a card. Our story deck isn't too big yet, so I think I do want to do focus here. And then briefly what happens here. So this is just kind of a way to get us back in the storytelling spirit by kind of starting to imagine and build a detail about something that's actively going on. I think last time we picked Esmer, and that's how we got our flashback about Ghost's origins. I want to pick the mainsprings because we have these 3 details about them, but there's 3 more potential details about this folk that we don't know. So I think what I want to do is generate one of those, and then we'll see whether that plays out as a flashback or what happens. So folk have 3 kinds of details: appearance details, concept details, and reputation details. Let's learn another concept about this folk, I think. So I'm going to take the deck. Concepts. All the folk stuff is blue, actually. And I think concepts are on the back. Yeah. Okay, so we drew the folk concept: complex relationship with a resource or an idea. And this symbol means that's another prompt that we want to draw. So let's draw an idea. Complex relationship with shamans. Okay, interesting. So this is a new facet of the mainsprings that we didn't know about before. They have a complex relationship with shamans. Interesting. So that could mean that they're sort of like, they have this ritualistic aspect to them. They're really like ritual. They're superstitious about things. I wonder if that's a source of some of their power, is like this sort of, weird ritual magic. Maybe that it's part of like what keeps them alive, what keeps them moving. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna let's write that on the card first of all. So complex, but complex relationship too, right? That's what it was. Yeah, complex relationship. That's sort of interesting. That kind of suggests, it's not straightforward. Let me write this down, and then we'll think more about it. Complex relationship with shamans. Um, yeah. I wonder if. Yeah, I do like this idea that it's bound up with how they're created. What brings them life, what keeps them alive. Um, maybe this is. Yeah. Okay. Let's I want to focus on this by let's say that there's a shaman who Ghost has a connection with. Oh, maybe. Okay, what about this? I'm gonna bring the crystal doctrine into this. So maybe how one becomes a mainspring hunter is by going through this sort of complex magical ritual, which is part of following the crystal doctrine, and it involves a shaman who you have to visit. So I think for our focus move here, and let me just jump to this move so that we've actually moved. So basically what this tells us to do is we're going to visualize an element of the story and sort of describe it, pick an action that's happening here, and then think about that, and then think about whether that action leads back to your overall story. So I think we see a flashback to a slightly younger Ghost, who has gone on this long journey through weird terrain. Actually, let's draw a terrain here. He's gone on this long journey down the flowering trail to find this shaman, and it's been hard. It's been long. He's got splinters. Ghost, by the way, is sort of made of wood with clockwork, and he's got some way to wind himself up. Although, no, I think actually we decided he can't wind himself up. He needs other people to wind him. But yeah, if you sort of imagine this like clockwork person-sized Pinocchio, that's kind of Ghost's general look. So yeah, he's been on this long journey. He's all splintered. Maybe he's picked up a bunch of stains from things. Very wound down. And he comes to this castle that is super weird. It's got all these weird protuberances on it. And he knows that this is the home of the shaman that he must seek to grant him his powers. Pick an action that's happening. Let's just go with the cards again, because action is one of the prompt fields here. Whisper. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So he comes to this castle, and the castle is whispering. Like there are just all of these whispers, murmurs, voices kind of emanating out of it. And we see Ghost listening, I think, because he knows that part of this trial is there are all of these false voices, but he needs to hear the true voice. So we see him. I don't intend to do too much cinematic stuff, but I imagine if this is a movie, the camera's like slowly spinning around Ghost as he's standing in front of this castle, and we hear in our nice surround sound setup all these whispers coming from all directions. And he has his eyes closed maybe. And finally there's this one voice, and he responds to the words it's saying. He says, "Yes, you're the voice. You're the real shaman that I need." And all the other whispers die down, and then this cloaked, shadowy figure opens the door of the castle and comes out and says, "You hear well, Mainspring. Step inside. I have much to teach you." Okay, I think we can cut that there. But yeah, Focus is a super freeform move. It's basically just designed to kind of kick our imagination into gear a little bit and start us thinking about that world. So that's cool. So we know that that Ghost has learned some of his abilities from the shaman. Let's give the shaman a name, and let's give him a story card, actually. So this is a cool thing you can do anytime something comes up that you think, might be a recurring part of your story or you're interested in seeing come back, you can create a story card for it and then add it to your story deck. And then we might draw that at some point, and that element returns to our story. So we have this shaman, and we want to name him something. Maybe let's just name him Whisper. That seems easy. And we know he trained Ghost in the Crystal Doctrine. Cool. So Whisper is not part of our story right now, so I'm not going to keep him in active story cards, but I'm going to put him in the story deck. And later when we draw from that, we'll shuffle those cards around. Speaking of cards, another thing I wanted to do real quick. So I mentioned the Even Deeper deck. So this is kind of a subtle visual difference, and the design of this is still a little in flux as your prototype decks. So here's the initial Downcrawl deck. Here is the Even Deeper deck. So you see it's got a slightly different color just to keep it differentiated. I might make that a little more obvious in the final production run of these. But it's got the same prompts, the same fields, but just kind of even weirder ones. So just like flipping through these really quick. We've got portals, nightmare, stairway, god squid. There's a lot of weird things that come up in here. So you can use either deck or both decks. I'm actually just going to shuffle these together, so we'll get kind of an injection of weirdness starting in this session. This deck has been a lot of fun to make. There's a lot of stuff in here that I thought was like maybe a little too obscure or too weird for the main deck, the main game, but I just threw all those ideas into the Even Deeper deck, so I'm super excited about that. Cool. So now we have a thicker deck of Downcrawl prompts. We will see where that takes us. Get my discards back in here too. I think I said this last stream, but a nice thing about the Downcrawl deck is since every time you're drawing a card, you're looking at a different prompt, you don't really have to worry about shuffling it or anything. You can just put your discards on the bottom of the deck, and by the time they come back up, it'll be a different prompt, so it'll still be random, which is nice. Awesome. So we'll get some even deeper weirdness in this session, I hope. Cool. So, okay. So we've done the focus. I'm going to jump us back here to the end of the resume the story move. Okay. Okay, if you don't have an immediate next step, turn to in volume or a day on the road when you're ready. Okay, so we were in the middle of a journey. So a day on the road is what we want, because that's kind of the move that you take at the start of each journey day. And because of this correction from last session, we are on the last step of our journey. But Ghost is lost. That's an important thing. So let me move my decks off the map here so that that's revealed. Normally, during a journey, ideally, we would have out a resource, which I'm using these blue stones to track, called TAC. And TAC is kind of an abstraction of knowledge you've learned about secret pathways and shortcuts and, what routes are still open versus closed. And you gain TAC when you learn more things about the world, and then you spend it during journeys to increase the odds of successful navigation. But Ghost, unfortunately, did not set off on this journey with very much TAC and is now actually totally out of it, which means you're lost, definitionally. The other token I should track too, and I just have a note about this from last session, is fate points. So Ghost had a couple of failures in a row, but that means he was able to bank some of this fate. And this will probably come up pretty soon here. We'll be able to spend this to get a lucky break if we need it. So that's good. But being lost is bad. So we will see what comes of that. Okay, so I'm going to jump to a day on the road here. When each day of a journey begins, first determine the terrain you pass through by picking the first option that matches. So I believe this last option applies here, if only one step remains, because we're on our last box of the journey. Pick a terrain detail from your destination, or ask aspect plus terrain for one if needed. Okay, so we do have the terrain detail of wasteland, but this seems like a good opportunity to learn the second terrain type for this volume, this area called the Crimson Wasteland. So let's ask aspect plus terrain. Okay. So we get sweltering pyramid. And one thing we can do with aspect plus terrain is we can also always ask special terrain instead, which is mycelial strands. That's pretty cool, but I like sweltering pyramid, a hot, swampy, humid pyramid. That's really intriguing. Okay, so I'm going to write that as a terrain detail. Interesting. So I'm seeing this wasteland of this kind of, like red sand that is this in this huge, underground space. And in the center of it maybe is this enormous pyramid that's just radiating heat. And it makes this whole desert kind of hot and yeah, sweltering and humid. Yeah, and there's actually probably, because of the humidity, maybe it's a wasteland and it's a desert, but there's probably, life. There's maybe little rivers trickling here and there. There's maybe more life here than you would expect. Okay, that's cool. So I think, yeah, the first thing Ghost is sort of noticing as we're approaching the heart is the heat. It's starting to get hot as he's approaching the end of his journey. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, so note the terrain along the next unmarked box on your journey cards. So we're entering... Oh, I wrote period. I should have written pyramid spelling. Okay. Okay, so sweltering. Cool. Okay, now play the first move that matches from the list below. We're up here. If only one step remains, that's us. Try to reach your journey's end. Okay, so we'll jump to that move. When facing your final box of the journey venture, pick a leader to guide you through the home stretch. Well, in a solo game, that's usually always going to be our main character, so that's easy. They'll explain how their leadership, guidance, and morale boosting helps you through these final miles. Again, he's kind of all we got, so he's doing it whether he likes it or not. And prepare to roll 2d6, considering the following modifiers. Okay, so we've got our d6 here. Are there more successes or failures logged this journey? Well, let's count. We've got 1 success, 2 successes, but then we've got 1, 2, 3 failures, which are the X out marks. So there are more failures than successes. Okay, so what that means is we're going to take a -1 to this roll based on this line here. So we're at 2d6 -1. But even worse, -3 if you are currently lost out of tack. So this is not great. So we're at a 2d6 -4 for this roll. And I don't think there's anything we can do about that. Because yeah, Ghost is in the right vicinity, but he does not know where he's going. I think, to me, that implies that the Crimson Wasteland is maybe like a huge terrain, and actually finding the heart of it, the center of it, is really difficult. Okay, so now we're going to roll the dice and see what happens, and it's probably not going to go great. Oh, wow. 2 + 1 is 3. So we actually have a negative result, which is pretty incredible. Wow. So 6 or less. There's a complication, yeah, with your journey's final leg. Choose one. If you still have any tack, we don't, so we can't choose that. So we can either arrive at an unexpected place, a volume adjacent to your intended destination, or a very unexpected place, spark a new volume to learn where you've accidentally stumbled on. Okay, well, looking at our map, the only adjacent place to the Crimson Wasteland, and adjacency is only based on these connections between places, which are called routes. It's not concerned with where things physically are. The only place we know about adjacent to the Crimson Wasteland is the Lone Mountain. I think, though, in this case, it would be more interesting to spark a new volume here. So Ghost ends up in a place near the Crimson Wasteland, but he totally was not expecting this place. He finds kind of he stumbles on an accidentally different place. So let's jump to the spark a volume move. When you hear tell of a new land in the deep, deep down, or accidentally end up there, ask theme and ask aspect plus terrain to learn the first 2 details about it. So I'm going to take a blank volume card here, And these are just kind of print and play templates. You can also just use index cards for volumes, but this just helps keep track of the information that you want to keep track of. Okay, so we're gonna ask theme. So we're gonna draw this top card. There's 2 themes on every Downcrawl deck card, so we could choose between Last Bastion or Lair of Ancient Beast. Oh, this card actually came up last game, which was funny, and we chose Lair of Ancient Beast. So let's go with Last Bastion. Okay, so we know that this is a Last Bastion, some kind of holdout, maybe a fortress, maybe something else. Let's see what emerges, and then we're gonna do terrain. So we get gray moraines. Okay, so moraine, if you don't know that word, is kind of like a high, rocky, kind of glacial, barren area. So gray is nice with that. So we have this rocky area that's a Last Bastion. Oh, what if this is something that's protect, like it's like a buffer between the Crimson Wasteland and the rest of the deep, deep down. Like maybe this is kind of a fortress that's protecting the rest of the world from whatever this disturbingly hot pyramid in the center of the desert is. That's pretty cool. Okay. Gray moraines. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I have lots of ideas for this, but let's finish this move here. Okay, name this volume. It's fine to go with something obvious. Let's we could call this something like the Watchtower. I was gonna try to work pyramid in there, but that might be too complicated. Let's just call it the Last Watchtower. That seems evocative. Okay. Decide this place's remoteness. So briefly, remotenesses affect how difficult a place is to reach, and also how many connections it can have on the map. So, and we know the Crimson Wasteland is sheltered. It seems like it wouldn't necessarily make sense for this to be more secretive than the Wastelands as a whole. Well, actually, it could be. Yeah, someone in chat suggests Gray Bastion. Yeah, that also is nice. Yeah, let's have this place be. Well, I kind of like secret. That's kind of cool. Like, this is not a super well known spot. It's kind of maybe it's like a secret resistance or something. Let's go with that just for fun. Okay. Create a map deck card for this volume. We've been doing that as we go along. And then finally add it to the map, unconnected, unless the story or another move suggests. And I think they actually do in this case. So if I jump back here to Journey's End, and we're at the bottom of this, we're sparking a volume to learn a new place, and then we're adding a route, if possible, from here to our intended destination. Oh, okay, right. So that makes sense. So we don't know the route how we got here, but we know that this is near the Crimson Wasteland. Okay. So I'm just going to draw a route off here, and then I'm going to say Last Watchtower. And because Last Watchtower is secret, that's actually the only route it will have. So this will not, connect to anything else other than the Crimson Wasteland. Okay, whichever volume you have ended up arriving in, ask for any unknown core details of it. Well, there's a lot of those because we don't know anything about this place because we just invented it. So I'm going to put the Crimson Wasteland back in our map deck. We'll pull it back out again if we need. But we need to establish the other things about the Last Watchtower now. So we need to learn more about this place. So let's start with a resource detail. So I talked about folk details earlier. Volume details. Let me switch focus here. Volume details, there's also 3 types. So there's 2 themes, 2 terrains, and 2 resource details. And resource details are either abundant, things that are abundant there, or things that are scarce there. So let's draw a resource. Whoops. There we go. Resources here. Magma. Man, is this like a pyramid in a volcano situation? We created a volcano earlier, but I'm fine with there being a lot of volcanoes down here. Um, yeah, I think the last watchtower maybe is built over like a volcanic crack where there's this hot magma oozing up from below, and it kind of illuminates it from below in a red glow, and maybe there's like steam power or some kind of like siege engine or something they're powering from this magma. Okay, so I'm gonna write abundant magma. I'm liking these visuals. Magma. Man, I'm not writing stuff great today. You will all forgive me, I hope. Okay, cool. That seems neat. Let's get another theme. So we know this place is the last bastion, but it also is, either a place of mourning or a lost shore. So shore would be another interesting terrain detail to add. We almost want to. I want to add stuff to the map, but I sort of like place of mourning because that feels like that ties more into what we've established so far. So yeah, I'm thinking that this place was created after some kind of great tragedy, maybe, and in the aftermath of that, it was like we will build, this watchtower to watch over this place and make sure whatever it is that's in the Crimson Wasteland never escapes again to wreak havoc. So it's almost like a memorial in addition to being this fortress. It's like, commemorating the people who died in this last great outbreak. That's pretty neat. Place of mourning. Cool. Okay. Another terrain. So scorched refuge, that works perfectly. Or we could do charcoal mines, but yeah, that ties in super well. Scorched refuge. So scorched is interesting. Yeah, this place itself has magma, but we also established that the pyramid in the Crimson Wasteland was hot. So yeah, it suggests to me that this is a place frequently scoured by by heat, and it's very difficult to live here. Yeah, so I think in addition, um, yeah, this tower is kind of blackened by ash, and looks like it's been baking for hundreds of years, which maybe it has. Very cool. Okay, and then the final detail for this volume is another resource. So let's see what we got. Bats. Are bats abundant or scarce here? Um, let's go with abundant. Yeah, clearly. Abundant bats. Just pouring out of the upper echelons of this tower. Yeah, we've really got a whole like metal album cover now going for this place. I love it. This is cool. Okay, so now we've established the kind of six core details for the last watchtower, so we kind of know what we're getting into. And yeah, so Ghost did not know this place existed. Let me clear off my discards here. Ghost had no idea this place existed, but he kind of stumbles across it as he's sort of wandering the fringes, trying to find the heart of the Crimson Wasteland. And yeah, are these people gonna be friendly or receptive to him or not? I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so this move is telling us you can play in a volume to get oriented within a new volume. So yeah, let's jump to that. So this in a volume move is just kind of a index to a bunch of different things you can do. Downcrawl generally kind of has two modes. You're either on a journey between two places, or you're at a place and kind of exploring, investigating, doing stuff there. So yeah, so when we're in a volume, let's start with this. When you arrive successfully in a volume, log your route and earn one tack. So we at least know that we're at the last watchtower now. So we've got one tack back. So that's nice. We're not lost. We know where we are. We just don't know how we got here or how to get where we're going. But it's a start. If you like, you can add a route on your map from your origin to here. Oh, this probably should say unless you were lost. That's actually a good point. I should tweak that. But even so, we can't because we established the last watchtower is secret. So this route to the Crimson Wasteland is the only one it can have. I a quick technical side note. I've been trying because last time my autofocus was not focusing on the card super well. So I've been trying to switch back and forth between two focus lengths manually, but I keep forgetting to do it. So I apologize if the screen is going mildly fuzzy every now and then. I think I'm just going to keep that off for the rest of the stream because I'm not using it correctly. But anyway, I think hopefully stuff is still clear enough that folks can read it. Okay. Well, in a volume, any of these options, I'm right here, if you're following along in the rule, can be played as often as you like. So, what's this place like? Yeah, let's start with that. Ask your guide. In impromptu or solo play, set the scene. So your guide is a phrase that has a specific meaning in Downcrawl that changes based on the play mode. So if you have a GM, your guide is just your GM. So you would just ask your GM, tell us what the last watchtower is like. But in impromptu mode, you can basically ask another player at the table, like, Frank, tell me what you think the last watchtower is like. In solo play, you're your own guide. So you can either use card prompts to do that, and you sort of saw me doing that in our opening flashback scene. Or there's a couple other moves you can play. So set the scene is one that helps us kind of establish what a new place is like. So that seems relevant here. So when you want more detail about the world around you, ask, what do we see here? Oh, and actually, I'm going to jump. There is a solo version of set the scene. It's not in the index of this version. These rules are still in flux. I exported a new version, but not to this computer. So there we go. Okay, this is the solo version of Set the Scene, which is basically the same thing, but just with some of the language changed so it's clearer. Okay, so we're going to ask the question, what do we see here? We're going to start to envision an answer with kind of whatever pops into our mind. But then there's some specific tools it gives us if we get stuck or we need some help. So one of the things we can do is we can draw a card from the Downcrawl deck and use basically any field off that to inspire an answer. So I'll get this one out and we'll pull it up if we need it. And then there's also some sort of key phrases we can play. So I'll leave this on screen, and then as I'm playing this move, you hopefully will see what I'm doing. So what do I see here? I think Ghost is lost in these kind of reddish dunes and feeling very despondent. And then kind of comes over a dune and sees kind of this big rocky out kind of volcanic, black lava rock protuberance, and kind of built, between two arms of this structure is this kind of ash blackened, very imposing looking castle with battlements and very looks like it's ready to be attacked. It's clearly very kind of military in its design, designed for defense. And there are these rocky gray moraines kind of stretching up behind it into the heights of this mountain. There's this crack of lava illuminating it. There's bats flying around. It looks pretty cool. But I'm going to say it's even stranger. And the reason it's stranger is, let's see. What are these catches my eye? Oh, fractal. I think the architecture of this fortress is just like incredibly ornate, almost fractally ornate. Like the crenellations have crenellations. And as Ghost is kind of, walking up to it, his eyes are sort of drawn to these complex patterns, and he has a hard time looking away. And I think because Ghost has a joy of riddles, he actually is able to save himself because he realizes that this is maybe the first layer of defense of this fortress, as it has this like hypnotic, impossible architecture. So he sort of forces himself to pull his gaze away and stop looking into these swirling fractal patterns of the fortress. I also see here something different. Um, I think there are, people obviously here. I don't think it's an abandoned watchtower. Um, he sees this row of guards, and the guards are very gilded. Let's say they have these like very ornate suits of armor that they're wearing. Again, kind of just this super complicated pattern. These very ancient looking, covered in these ancient sigils and runes. And there's this row of these sort of ceremonial guards standing in front of the gate to this fortress. Okay, cool. I think let's kind of call that there for this move. We've kind of set the scene adequately for my taste. I'm gonna jump back to in a volume. There we go. And I think Ghost is gonna have to have a conversation with one of these guards to figure out where he is or get inside the place. So there's a move for meeting a new NPC called Greeting Stranger. So let's jump to that. You'll kind of get the sense as we're going along that you can play Downcrawl kind of like really religiously jumping between all these moves. When you're playing solo especially, you can also just kind of let your imagination go for a while, and as long as you're coming up with cool ideas and a cool story, you can ignore the moves. But the moves are sort of always there to give you structure when you need it, which after you've played a few times and kind of get used to how they work and the flow of them, it's really kind of nice to bounce between them. And on your first game, you probably wouldn't be obviously as familiar as I am with how you jump around between these things, but hopefully I'm providing enough explanation and context as to why I'm, choosing each of these. So let's jump over to Greeting Stranger. So the first thing we do when we meet a new person is we figure out if they're from a folk that we have met before or one that we haven't. And this is one fun thing about Downcrawl is rather than there being a stock set of kind of fantasy races, you invent your own peoples for each world that you play in. And so each world has different peoples. So that's how we got mainsprings. There are only mainsprings in this particular game. That's not like a stock Downcrawl, type or anything. So we're going to roll a die. I'm right here in the rules. If it's even, this is a folk we've met before, but if it's odd, so are they. This is a folk we've never seen. So let's find out. A 2, that's even. So it is a folk we've met before. So I'm going to take the folk deck here. Oh, those are the blank folk cards. This is the folk deck. I'm going to add mainsprings back into it because it's possible this is another mainspring. And we're going to draw a card at random. Okay, so this folk card, you'll notice, is totally blank except for one word, cowled. And on the back, I think I wrote here, Blurva the Merchant. So this is, we previously met a merchant who is a member of this folk, but we don't know anything else about the folk other than that they all wear cowls. Okay, but we're going to learn more about them now. So since this is a folk we've met before, we can ask for one additional detail. Appearance, concept, or reputation. Let's get another appearance, because I think until we start talking to them, we won't really know anything else. So again, folk stuff is blue. Appearance. Oh, interesting. Summoned. So the potential examples here are djinn, demons, living puppets, homunculi, sentient furniture. So this is some kind of artificial folk. The most obvious is to say that these are like living suits of armor, but we do know that we had met this merchant who was a member of this folk previously. I wonder though if there's a common thread there of, like service, like extra dimensional creatures that are summoned to fulfill a job, and so maybe this merchant we had previously interacted with, had been like summoned to like, staff the stall and sell goods by the owner. And then these people here have been summoned to guard this fortress. Yeah, I like that. So summoned. I think I'm just going to call them the summoned. That's really easy. Interesting. Okay. So Yeah, so there are these suits of armor, and there maybe is nothing inside, or maybe there's yeah, because that goes with cowled, because maybe we didn't see under the cowl, so maybe they sort of take the form of like the outer, the clothing or the outfit or whatever of the job that they've been summoned to do. That's neat. Okay, let's go with that. Okay, cool. We want to give them a name by grabbing letters and phonemes from the card. Do the summoned have names? That's interesting. Let's the merchant had a name called Blurva. And we've got Cowled and some. Yeah, let's say they have names. This guy is named. I'm just gonna grab some random letters from this. Calma, some delay, dem, Medon. Let's go with Medon. Okay. So the suit of armor comes forward and says, halt, I am Medon of the last watchtower. What business have you here? Okay. So we've got some prompts here for, what their sort of attitude is and what they're interested in. Let's find out the attitude. Let's ask reputation to see what kind of mood this Medon is in. What am I looking for? Yeah. Reputation is right. Childish. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to interpret that, I think, as, maybe not super bright, like, this, whatever this spirit was summoned to be the suit of armor and defend the gates, but it's not going to have scintillating conversation with you. It's kind of a, simple animus. It's going to be a little like talking to a obnoxious customer support representative. I think we're going to have a hard time getting through, and we might need to speak to a manager. So I think Ghost is just sort of, saying I didn't even know this place was here. Who runs this place? What is it here for? And Medon says, we are we defend the last watchtower, which in turn defends the land from the Crimson Pyramid. And Ghost is like, okay, cool. Have you heard of a witch named Esmer who lives in these parts? That's who I'm looking for. And one of these prompts here is, do they know or are they willing to tell? Ask the Oracle. So we can roll for this, but the Oracle's also on the Downcrawl deck card, so I'm going to draw. And if you think the answer is likely, you can draw 2 and take the best. And similarly, if you think it's unlikely, you can draw 2 and take the worst. Do we think it's likely that this guard knows about Esmer? I think since we established he's not the brightest tool in the shed, it's probably unlikely. So I'm going to draw 2 oracles and pick the worst. So I got a yes, if, and a no. No is the worst one, so we'll go with that. And apologies, there's a typo in this card, but it says no because someone's unlucky. Yeah, I guess that's just Ghost in this case. He's had a string of bad luck, and he hasn't really found out any info about Esmer. So I think Medon just says there are no knights here by that name. And Ghost is like, oh, no, it's not a knight. She's a witch. She flies around terrorizing perfectly innocent Mainspring. And, Medon just keeps repeating, there is no one here by the name of Esmer. And so Ghost is like, fine. Is there anyone inside I can talk to? And I think, these knights probably aren't just going to let anyone into the castle. I think Ghost is going to need to make a skill check to kind of find a way to get through this situation. So let's look at how that works. So this is going to use the Sliver of Fate mechanics, and Sliver of Fate is pretty straightforward. But whenever you're kind of facing a situation that you can probably resolve in a single roll, which I think applies here. I don't think we probably want to get in a fight with these knights. You face a challenge. So when you face a straightforward challenge, state your desired outcome clearly. Yeah, I think Ghost just wants to get inside the watchtower, and find, someone who's not these, security thugs to talk to. He desperately needs more tack. He still is very lost. He would love to have more tack than this. So I think he would love to, see if there are people inside here who know more, and actually, presumably if they're defending against this pyramid, they would know about danger. So he thinks that's pretty likely. So yeah, I think what his desired outcome is he wants to get past these guards and get into the watchtower. That's pretty simple. Okay, what's a sensible approach to solving this problem? Well, again, our options are forceful, focused, flashy, and fast. Forceful, maybe not so much, because there's a bunch of these knights, so that's probably not going to end well. Flashy is interesting, although I don't think they're super easily impressed. Um, Fast could be, but Ghost is not very good at being fast. So I think focused is maybe the one that makes the most sense here, even though we've already marked it. And ideally, we would get a chance to mark something else. But I think this focused is probably what makes the most sense. But Ghost is neither especially good or bad at focused, so that won't affect our roll, which is fine. So that means that this challenge is going to be tricky. Okay, it's already marked, so we don't need to do that. Is this challenge especially hard? So what specifically is Ghost doing? How is he being focused? I think I think again I'm going to lean on my customer service analogy. I think Ghost is just going to sort of try to patiently explain that he's not an enemy. He does not come from the pyramid. He is trying to speak to whoever runs the last watchtower, because he also is an enemy of, the forces within the Crimson Wasteland. So he's just kind of like, he's kind of trying to like verbally, get through to these not super bright automatons that he should be led inside the castle. So yeah, I think this is kind of verbal sparring and seeing if Ghost can find the right words or the right, argument to convince them to let him inside. Okay, but I don't think that's especially hard. That's kind of an average level of difficulty, maybe. And then scene aspects are something that comes up when we're doing a more complex challenge, but they don't apply here. Okay, so we're still at tricky. So we can either roll 2d6 or draw from the deck. Let's draw from the deck. Okay, yes. Because someone did something incredible. Who and what? Yeah, Ghost, probably. Unless... yeah, this could be a way to intro someone inside the castle. But let's just go with the simpler thing and say that Ghost comes up with this. Again, he's got the joy of riddles, so he's maybe kind of good at verbally, dancing his way around problems and wordplay and stuff. So yeah, I think Ghost is kind of able to fast talk his way past these guards, yeah. And then, sorry, let's just finish this. So on a 8+, I kind of skip past this, but the number here does sort of matter. The important thing here, this is not a yes if, it's just a straight yes, and you can see from the dice pips here that was a 9 technically. So not a 7, we got an 8, and we say how we succeed. Oh, sorry, I'm off the screen. We're down here. So on an 8+, say how you succeed. So yeah, Ghost kind of talks his way through these guards, is able to convince them that, I'm imagining there's some kind of, maybe a logic-based scene, where it's like, well, if I'm not a friend, but I'm also not an enemy, then I must be a friend, and you should let me in, right? Something like that. And finally, these poor summoned armor suits are so confused. They're like, you You must be right. And they step aside and let him in. Presumably, the Watchtower's actual defenses past this first layer are a little more impressive. Okay, cool. So the guards step back. They open the gates, and Ghost steps inside. I don't think this is like him penetrating into the inner sanctum of this fortress. I think he's just sort of gotten past, the outer layer of defenses. Okay, cool. I'm gonna put the summoned card back in our folk deck because that situation has been dealt with. Okay, so who does run the Last Watchtower and what's their deal? I think we could let's ask inspiration. So this is a move that we can play in solo play. Where is this? Find inspiration, which is basically just kind of drawing a prompt and letting it inspire us. So I think uh, concept or domain, that seems relevant. Maybe evocative word or concept. Let's go with that, actually. I'm going to ask idea. Okay, so we get, glare. Voices. It's funny that we got whispers before and now there are voices. Seems to be a recurring theme this episode. Maybe foreshadowing when we had our flashback. Voices. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm seeing is, so Ghost kind of comes into this central courtyard of the Watchtower, and he's kind of standing on like this mosaic tile, and he just hears these like booming voices kind of coming from all around him, saying who are you and what do you seek in these lands. And it's kind of this echoing thing, and he sees kind of, whoops, bumped the camera. Sorry about that. My emphatic hand gestures got the best of me. Yeah, I think there are these kind of, he's surrounded by, there's like these high balconies looking over this courtyard, and he sees these kind of shadowy figures looking down on him. And something about the architecture or some magic maybe is like amplifying their voices as they talk, speak to him. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily role play out this whole scene right now, but I'm trying to think of, where it's going, or what the kind of MO of these people is. I think the biggest unresolved question here is, what is the threat that this watchtower is built to defend, right? I think it's not Esmer the Witch, because she doesn't feel like a powerful enough force to have created such a, long-term edifice as this. So what is the force that they're guarding from? What do we know? I'm going to pull out Crimson Wasteland again from our map deck. And yeah, there's still a lot we don't know about it, which makes sense. Yeah, all we know is it's a wasteland in this sweltering pyramid. So I think it might sense to answer this question by learning more about the Crimson Wasteland. So I think Ghost is talking to these people and saying, what are you so afraid of? What are you guarding from? Let's draw a theme for the Crimson Wasteland. Waking dreamers, or source of idea. Source of seasons. Whoa. Oh, man. Huh. Does this pyramid somehow, like, control the weather? Or, like, affect, like, temperature all through the down? That's pretty cool. I think I have to go with that. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so I think what these voices say to Ghost is that there is I want to say like a weathermancer or something like that, a magmamancer, some kind of magician who's gone who sort of lost his mind centuries ago. But within this pyramid at the heart of the Crimson Wasteland, he has some magic or some technology or some artifact that lets him basically, I think it's about controlling volcanoes. I think it basically lets him turn up the pressure on volcanoes all through the down and cause these like catastrophic eruptions and magma rivers and fires. And I think the forces who built the watchtower basically have kind of imprisoned him there now. So yeah, maybe it's well, it could be an artifact, and maybe now the watchtower has it. I want to say it's just this guy's power, and they basically turned his pyramid into a prison. So this guy, I am gonna assume he's immortal, because by the time you become a terrible weathermancer, you've probably gained a lot of other powers too. He's like chained up deep in the bowels of this pyramid. But if he ever gets free, he will be able to control the volcanoes and bring havoc to the lands. Yeah, I like that. Source of Seasons. That's a cool prompt. That's a cool combinatorial prompt. I like it. Cool. Okay, so let's capture that on this card. So Source of Seasons. And I think at this point, let's also make a story card for this villain we've just invented, so that we remember his details. So I'm gonna go with Lavamancer, because that's slightly easier to say than Magmamancer. Lavamancer, who can control volcanoes, but is currently imprisoned beneath the Crimson Wastelands pyramid. Yeah. Does he have a name? Probably. Maybe he's just the Lavamancer for now. Maybe we'll learn his true name later. Jeff the Lavamancer. No. Yeah. Okay. Super cool. So yeah, I think as the conversation happens, I think these shadowy voices kind of grill Ghost on who he is and what he's doing here, and he tells them, he's hunting down this witch Esmer. Oh, okay, I like this. So yeah, I think finally the shadowy voices kind of drop their act and step forward into the light, and we can see that there are these tall, kind of pale old men and women in these kind of ceremonial robes, and they say, you what do you know of Esmer? And so I think there's kind of a discussion, and it turns out that these people at the watchtower, the last guard, let's say, are aware of Esmer, and they're worried that she's here in the wasteland because she's trying to free the Lavamancer. That seems like that makes sense. So they are super invested now in effectively Ghost's mission. Okay, cool. So I think we've resolved the immediate conflict. I think Ghost is kind of free now to, kind of has free run of the last watchtower, can kind of, gather intel and learn things and figure out what his next course of action is. Cool. Okay. So let me jump back to in a volume and consider my options here. Okay. So, what are some things we could do? We want to visit the map room at some point, which is a way that we can learn more information about the world around us and gain more tack. Where can we find more tack? Try recovery. Okay, so that might be a good thing for us to do. And we've also just finished this very long journey. So, yeah, and just to wrap up this journey card, so we failed that last roll. and we arrived in the wrong place. So one of the things you can do with a completed journey is you can add it to your story deck if there's some element of that you think might return. I think there isn't. We captured things on story cards that we wanted to save, so I don't think we actually need to save this card. So we can go ahead and discard this. Or if you want, you can keep each session's card as kind of like a record of that session if you haven't captured stuff elsewhere. But I think we kind of have in this case. Cool. Okay, this is great. So let's do this recovery move, because Ghost has had this long journey. When you seek out a place to relax and recuperate in a volume, choose an option below and make a roll to heal or otherwise recover expended abilities. You may play this again on a different day by choosing a different option. Okay. We don't have any active dangers, so we don't mechanically need to do this one. This doesn't really seem like a place for a night out. We could gamble for map scraps. That could be interesting. I think let's do a beautiful spot, because we don't actually need any of these mechanical details right now. We could make a new friend. That might be cool, but we just kind of had a couple conversation scenes in a row. So let's do this. Describe a place you find rest and tranquility. Optionally add a local detail. So local details are basically all the kind of specifics you want to remember about a place. So we have these 6 kind of core details for this volume. But on the back, we can write local details, which might be specific places here, specific people here, active plot threads here, right? Stuff like that. So what's a place where Ghost can find rest here? So I think so we've got these kind of summoned guards out front who are kind of the first line of defense. But I think we have these kind of 2 groups within the walls. There are these kind of cowled ancient people who I think are maybe descendants of the original, force that defeated the Lavamancer. I'm going to change it to the Magmamancer. I just like that better. The Magmamancer. Yeah, so, and I think they're sort of like the executive council of this place, right? They're the people who make the decisions and stuff. But then I think there is kind of like a battalion of troops who is stationed here who are, more capable. But I think also kind of bored, because I get the vibe that nothing really major has happened to change the situation in a long time. The Magmamancer's been imprisoned, so the situation's kind of stable. But the theory is at a moment's notice, these troops could jump into action and do what needed to be done. But they haven't had that call to action for a long time. So there's barracks. So I'm trying to get at what's a beautiful place here. So there's barracks for these troops. We also, though, had established that this tower had these super complicated fractal designs, which were partially kind of like a warding mechanism. But I think also maybe it just comes from this old art style, this old kind of architecture and way of building things that's kind of mostly been forgotten in the years since this watchtower was made. So what I'm kind of imagining is that there are all of these kind of high tower rooms, or sort of parapets with these ornate staircases leading up to them. And they're mostly kind of abandoned, because the guards don't come up here, and the kind of council people have their own concerns. So I think Ghost spends the afternoon kind of wandering through these dusty, abandoned but beautiful rooms, just drinking in all of this detail, rubbing his hands on these old ash blackened banisters, and just kind of appreciating this place that really no one has appreciated in a while, and the beauty here. So yeah, let me capture that as a local detail for the last watchtower, of these sort of beautiful empty rooms. Okay. And mechanically, Ghost did not actually take... So one of the things that can happen is, in a dangerous situation, is that some of your approaches can take setbacks, which means you can no longer use them until you heal them. Ghost fortunately did not take any setbacks during the journey, so he mechanically sort of doesn't strictly speaking need to heal. But what I will say is that he is able to talk to one of the guards in the kind of platoon and get them to wind him back up, because I think he was getting really wound down and kind of starting to have a hard time moving and thinking maybe even. So he's able to kind of get rewound and feels a lot better after this bit of recovery. Okay, cool. I think Ghost really needs more tack. We could try to gamble for tack, again, as part of recovery. Or we could visit the map room. Or we could see if there's, some even more specific bit of tack here. Let's start by visiting the map room, though. So the map room is kind of a concept that every volume, because travel in the deep, deep down is so difficult and routes are changing all the time and it's shifting, every volume has some kind of place where info about navigation is shared, whether that's a public notice board or an ancient library filled with records or whatever it is. So when you first visit the map room after journey, describe it. So yeah, I think it's quite literally a map room here in the Last Watchtower. I think, again, in one of these kind of high tower rooms, there are all of these records, because I think, when this place was founded, it was very important to know what all the ways in and out of the Crimson Wasteland were. They know, all the routes, obvious and more subtle, that you'd want to guard to make sure no one is slipping in and out. So yeah, I think Ghost spends a while kind of poring over these old records and to see if he can learn anything. Okay, so what we're going to do is remove the current volume from the map deck and shuffle it. Lay out up to 5 cards face down, which are the archives here. Okay, so we do want to include the Crimson Wasteland, but we don't include the Last Watchtower because that's where we are right now. So I've got all the other things. We actually only have 4 other volumes, which you can see from our map here. So there might potentially be info about any of them in the archives here. Okay. When you do research in the map room, choose an option, repeat when you like, until you run out of archive cards or tack. So what we can do is we can spend tack to draw specific cards from the archive. So if there's a specific place we're researching, we can do that. But we can't really afford to spend any tack right now. So I think it's going to kind of be up to luck to see if we learn anything. And specifically, there are a few options down here that we can earn tack for doing. So one of those is Rumors of Distant Lands. So we can earn a tack if we learn about a whole new place. So I think let's start with that. So looking through these old records, what new place does Ghost learn about? So let's spark a volume. And we did this before earlier on the stream, so I won't walk through it again. But we're going to ask theme, and then we're going to ask aspect plus terrain. Okay, a place of forbidden knowledge or a place of exiles and outcasts? Let's go with forbidden knowledge, always. Okay, so yeah, Ghost in the archives here learns about a place of ancient secrets and forbidden knowledge. Excellent. And then we're going to draw terrain for this. The top 2, top 2, flip over the top one. A dripping waste or a nesting grounds. I like dripping waste, forbidden knowledge and dripping waste. That seems cool. Yeah, name this volume. We already have a Crimson Wasteland, so I don't want to put waste in the name of it. Why is there knowledge amidst dripping waste? Is this like a sunken library? That's the first thing that came to my mind. In chat, sounds like a pleasant place, yeah. And another question from chat. Will this and other sessions be available to watch on YouTube later? Yeah, I'll post... I post the full video of each of these an hour or 2 after the stream ends, once it has time to process. And then I usually grab some clips of interesting stuff and post those as separate videos too. So yeah, just keep an eye on the page in the next day or two, and you'll see those clips. And yeah, you can also watch the full streams for the first 2 sessions there too. Yeah, I like a sunken library or flooded library. The drowned library. What about that? Or the drowning library. Let's make it present tense. Drowning library. A place of forbidden knowledge and dripping waste. Okay. So Ghost learns about this place in the archives here, and it's like, oh, well, that doesn't sound super pleasant, but knowledge is always good. That might be a reason I might want to go there. Is this place known, sheltered, or secret? I think if we have too many secret places, it can be hard to connect anything on our map. But this does seem like a secret place, so I'm going to go with secret again for the Drowning Library, because that seems to track. We've got our map deck card, and then we want to add it to the map unconnected. So I'll put that up here. My map is, a little constrained on this stream because I've got, an area a little less actually than the sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. Normally what you would do if you're playing in a group especially is have a big central map that everyone can draw on, and you have a lot more space than this. Another thing you can do when you run out of space on a map is create what's called a second region, and then have one volume that's sort of like a gateway between those two regions and switch back and forth between them. As we keep playing this campaign, we might fill this up and need to do that, but for now, things are okay. So we have the Drowning Library on our map, but we don't know any routes to it. So that means we can plan a journey there, but it's going to be much more difficult than if it had a route. So one thing we could do if we ever decided we needed to get there is try to do some research specifically on that volume by spending a tack and seeing if we could find a route that connected to it. Okay, but we did earn 1 tack for learning about this place, so that's great. So we now have 2, so that's better than nothing. Getting there. Okay. Okay, we still have the archives that are here. What other options can we play? Okay, so everything else we want to draw something from the archive. And it says draw blind. When you're writing on the map of these, sometimes if they're spread out, obviously you can tell what they are. But if you just kind of like put them under the table out of your sight and shuffle them around and draw one, that's a good way to get one at random. Okay, so I drew Catacomb City, which is the place we came from. So we can't learn any new details about that, but we can learn other things. So, for instance, if this volume is visited, ask for one new detail to replace an existing one, explaining what rumors you hear of a major change. Yeah, we could do that. Let me just see if anything else makes sense here. Yeah, I think... Oh, well, actually... Oh, okay, so this is another thing. We could learn that actually one of the routes we knew of how to get to Catacomb City is no longer passable. And that also earns us a tack, because that's really useful to know. So I think let's do that, because we really want tack right now. Okay, remove one route to this volume at random. There are 2 routes leading to Catacomb City. So I'm just going to roll a d6, and if it's 1 to 3, we'll do the top one. And I rolled a 1. Okay. So it is no longer possible to get between Catacomb City and the Ooze Hollows. Interesting. And explain why this route is no longer in use. Yeah, I think, one of the kind of maintainers of the Watchtower, one of the sort of council members, has kind of, written an amendation to this old record with some, recent news she learned. And what do we know about the Ooze Hollows real quick? I think that's the lair of the Ancient Beast, yeah. It's the lair of an ancient beast that emerges from these oozy, cramped burrows every once in a while. Right, and there are people there who worship it. I think what this note says is that the beast recently emerged, and it caused such a cataclysm of rumbling and shaking that all of the known routes leading to the Ooze Hollows kind of collapsed. So and many worshippers perished in this event. Yeah, so the ooze hollows are now unconnected again. So yeah, if we wanted to get there again right now, it would be difficult because we don't know any routes to them. This is kind of a core thing of Downcrawl, and the section in the book on the map actually tells you that you should write the map in pencil because it's frequently going to change. Pencil is a little harder to read on the stream, so that's why I'm using pen and crossing it out. But traditionally, what you do is actually erase that route. But yeah, we can remember we've crossed this out. This route is no longer here. But yeah, your map is always very mercurial in Downcrawl. Okay, so we have learned something about the Catacomb City here. So I'm going to set aside a card because we can't learn anything more about that place at this archive and at this location. And I think those are the only two options that we can specifically earn tack. But while we're here, we might as well draw once more and see if there's something else interesting we can learn. So I'm going to draw another one of these cards from the archive. Oh, and it's the ooze hollows, which totally makes sense. Maybe there's some follow-up info. Yeah, let's read the guidebook about the ooze hollows because it's unvisited, so we can learn more things about it. So there's still space for another terrain and 2 resources. We don't have any resources, so let's draw a resource for the ooze hollows. Ideas. Are ideas abundant or scarce in the ooze hollows? I think they're scarce. Maybe I think part of worshiping the ooze beast is maybe about letting go some of your free will, letting go some of your conscious control, your conscious thought, and kind of just surrendering your mind, body, and spirit to worship of the ooze beast. So I think there aren't a lot of fresh original ideas around the ooze hollows. There's a lot of these kind of mindless cultists chanting koans to the ooze beast. Yeah, this will be an interesting place if we ever visit there. So, scarce ideas. Okay. All right. We could, there's 2 more cards here we could potentially draw. We can always come back to the map room before we leave this volume. I think let's stop there, though, for now. Because we've gained some tack. We've learned a few things. Did I? No, I didn't add my second tack. I should have 1 more tack because we did 2 moves and just tack. Awesome. So we have 3 now, which is much, much better. No ideas, only ooze in chat. Yes, exactly. And yeah, someone else pointed out erasable gel pens. Yeah, that's also a good solution. Cool. Okay. The question that I am thinking now, I have jumped back to in a volume, is what are Ghost goals here? He still wants to figure out if they know anything about Esmer's movements. And he still would like more tack, I think. So yeah, it might be interesting to get in a conversation with someone here that's more kind of more specific. Ask for directions as for stuff within here. I think this is more about, or make a check. Yeah, that could maybe apply here. I think Ghost is going to go down to the barracks and try to gamble with the soldiers to see if he can get some more tack, because he really got burned on that last journey and he doesn't want to happen again. This could backfire though. Let's jump here to recovery and then go to gamble for map scraps. Okay, let's see what happens. Roll 2d6. Okay, I got a 3 and a 2, so those are not doubles. If both dice show different values of 4 or more, gain 1 tack, otherwise break even. Okay, so we broke even. Are we gonna do it again? Let's do it again. Come on, big money, big money. 4 and a 3. Yep. If both dice show different values. Okay, and they're not of 4 or more. Okay, so we broke even again. Let's try it one more time. Okay. Yep. We could do this all night, but I'm starting to get gun shy that we're gonna roll something bad and lose everything. So Ghost breaks even after some gambling. Yeah. We don't lose any tack, but we don't get any tack. It's fine. But maybe he makes friends with a soldier while he's there. Let's do that. So I'm gonna do greeting stranger again. So let's see if this soldier we're gambling with is someone from a folk that we're familiar with. It's even. So yes, it is. So where's my folk deck stack? I'm gonna draw a folk deck card at random. The Builders. Okay. Sorry, I need to remember to hold these where everyone can see them. So this was one of the folk that we first seeded our world with. In our session 0, we created these people. So what do we know about them? They're unusually large, they're great architects, and they're superstitious. Right. Okay. So this was a people who are these kind of, I'm imagining them as like 10, 11, 12 foot tall kind of giants who build things, and they're hired to build things because of their big size. They can schlep around these big, stones, and they know how to assemble them well. But right, we also established that they're superstitious, and I was interpreting that as maybe they have a bunch of kind of rituals and traditions as part of their building, almost like like a secret society, like the Masons, right? Like they have a bunch of old lore and traditions around how they build things. Okay, so one of these soldiers is a builder, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you're a big, tough person, then that would make sense that you would get a job like that. Okay, cool. We learned something new about the builders, so we get one additional detail about this folk. So as we're gambling with this person for these valuable scraps of old maps and info about routes in the world, we kind of just start talking with them. Let's do another appearance, because that seems like a thing we would notice really early on. Appearance: stone and earth. Okay, so maybe they're like rock people. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. So I'm gonna write that as made of stone. Yeah, so they're these kind of rock giant folk. Yeah, and let's give this fellow a name. I'm gonna say I think they have mineral names. So let's call this person Topaz. Topaz the Guard. So yeah, so Topaz and Ghost start talking. And what is Topaz excited to talk about? I'm gonna jump down to here. Ask resource or idea. Let's draw idea. Provinces. Okay, so Topaz is into geography, which again I think tracks. So this is why he and Ghost kind of get talking. Is Ghost is kind of saying, oh well, I've wandered the Down for a long time, and Topaz is like, oh, I also used to wander before I got an honest living. So I think they bond over that a little bit. They're both kind of they've been wanderers. Yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna play a move now called. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I keep getting bitten by the fact that I haven't updated the index for this. Where is this move? It's under impromptu play. Next time I'll have the PDF with all the latest stuff in it. Okay. No, not Greeting Stranger. Oh, where is it? Maybe I won't be able to find this. Somewhere in here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I thought this was in here. Okay, so this is a move called Trading Questions, which is a way to get to know an NPC better. And this is pretty simple, but it's basically two parts. It's, first of all, you ask the NPC a question, which is whatever you or your character are most curious to know about them. Ideally, it's a big question, sort of skipping conversational filler and niceties that might lead up to it. So what is Ghost curious to know about Topaz, who is a builder? I think it's maybe it's just there doesn't seem to be a lot of building around here, right? Like this fortress has been here for a long time. Are you sad that you're not building anything anymore, or is that an offensive question. I'm sure builders do lots of things other than build. But yeah, I think that's the crux of the question: is does Topaz miss building, or is that not a factor? Okay, if they seem unlikely to tell you, no, but Topaz seems to be pretty friendly and we seem to be getting on well. So if they think they tell you, explore the answer in your head. Maybe you already know it, instinctively sense what it is, or maybe you want to ask inspiration for help. Yeah, I think Topaz, I think the most obvious answer here is, there's a lot more to the builders than just building. That's how outsiders see us, as these big dumb rock brutes who can move their bricks around. But you know, we have an ancient culture, ancient traditions, going back thousands of years that other folk, know nothing of. And I think, Ghost is like, oh, of course, of course. I'm sorry to be, I'm sorry, I didn't think that through. Of course you do. What are some of your traditions? I'd love to know more. And I think Topaz, kind of spins a long story about all the different holidays that builders have. They have all of these days to honor, long gone builders, that they still remember their deeds and their exploits. He just rattles off this list of these sort of like holy days and these special occasions, and Ghost is just really interested. Maybe because because of the nature of his people, the Mainsprings, they haven't had time to build up all these ancient traditions because they're not that old, and they haven't had a life free from persecution from the witches to kind of build that culture. So I think Ghost is almost maybe a little nostalgic about all this. Okay, so then the second part of this move is now let them ask a question to you in return. Imagine what they might most want to know about your character. Yeah, and again, I think the most obvious thing here is, for Topaz to just sort of say, so how did your wandering lead you here? What are you trying to find? So Ghost starts talking about Esmer and about how, his personal experiences with Esmer, who murdered his family, and he's been, tracking her down for years and hunting her and everything. And I think Topaz kind of turns this around a little bit. And what Topaz ends up asking Ghost is, do you ever get tired of hunting? Is there more to you than just being a hunter? And then just in the move here, think about the answer, invent if you don't know it, decide if your character would reveal it. You might need to deepen backstory or peel back another layer of your personality to find a truly honest answer. And yeah, I think Ghost is a little struck by this question. I think he's been hunting witches for so long that he almost doesn't know who he is other than that. It may almost have defined his whole life, because I think when we had that flashback, we established that he had been pretty freshly made when this catastrophic event happened, and he kind of swore vengeance on Esmer. And yeah, all of his aspects, right, are about hunting, except for joy of riddles. That's kind of, the one piece of himself that isn't connected to that. So I think this is actually a really emotional question for Ghost, and he has to think about it for a long time. And what he finally says is, I think if I wasn't a hunter, or if I finally got my revenge on Esmer and all the other witches, and the Mainsprings were free to just live their lives again, I don't know what I would be, but I think I would want to. I think I like making things and tinkering with things and solving little mechanical, riddles and mechanical puzzles. That's a part of hunting I like, is the chase, the tracking, all of that, figuring out what your opponent's thinking. But I think I wouldn't have to be a hunter to still find other ways to find joy in that. Yeah. Cool. So I really like trading questions, just as an aside. It's so simple on paper. It's just, one character asks a question, the other character asks a question. But all the times I've play tested this game, both alone and with groups, it always produces these really cool moments where you're sort of forced to peel back new layers of characters, and a lot of my favorite NPCs and Downcrawl campaigns have kind of emerged out of answers from this move. So I'm a big fan of trading questions. It's one of my favorite moves in the game. Cool. Yeah, so I think Topaz and Ghost have sort of bonded a little bit over this. And I think Ghost, just wants to know if Topaz has heard anything about Esmer, because he knows that, the people here at the Watchtower are aware that Esmer's around, but he doesn't really, know if there's any detail. So this feels like a good moment to ask the Oracle. Does Topaz know anything useful about Esmer? Yes, if serious injury sustained or another devil's bargain. Yeah, serious injury seems sort of weird. You could maybe have that be a flashback, like, Topaz took an injury learning something about Esmer. But I think let's replace that with a different thing. So yes, but there's a cost. Yes, if. And I think the clear thing here is that this information is sort of it's need to know, right? So Topaz is like, I know some of the other guards and some of the council have been tracking Esmer's movements, but for some reason they're not being open with it. They're not telling everyone. So I think to learn that info, you would have to, go to the council, or you would have to break into the High Council chamber where they've kept all of the scouts' logs and the scouts' reports, because that's where that info would be. Okay. So this, to me, is starting to sound like a venture. So let me explain what a venture is and how a venture works. So ventures are basically just a tool for tracking a problem or situation that's going to take more than one roll to resolve, basically. So what we do to make a venture, I think we might have done this in the first stream. I don't remember, but that's fine. I don't mind explaining things again. What we do when we make a venture is we summarize the challenge on the top of a vertically held blank index card. So I think what this is can we learn the secret of Esmer's whereabouts? Okay. And then what we do is we write a number of boxes down the left side that corresponds to how many rolls we think this challenge is going to take to resolve. And that can be entirely up to you, entirely on how much time you want to spend on that part of the story. I think since we want to keep things, fairly zippy for the stream, let's just have this be three boxes. So we mark 3 boxes, and then we kind of make a double box around the last one to remind us that that's the end of the venture. And when we do that final roll, we'll take into account our successes and failures so far. So you might note that when we did our journey, a journey is basically just a venture. It's the same mechanic. It's the same thing. A journey is a kind of a type of venture. So that's kind of a nice, if you've learned how journeys work, you already know how ventures work. So cool. Yeah. So how do we go about resolving this? So I think the first step of this is that Ghost is just going to go ask, right? Like, he seemed to be getting on well with the council. So he's just going to go to them and say, look, we're on the same side. We both are worried about Esmer. Just tell me where she is and I'll go take care of her. But there's going to be some complication, right? We know Topaz said they're being secretive about it, so something's up with that. So let's have Ghost make a roll. Again, kind of a social roll, I think, here, to see how persuasive he can be about you should really just tell me. So let's look at Ghost card here. I think Ghost is going to be forceful about this because he's relying on his cred as a strong hunter. So he's kind of being like, let me handle this, tell me what I need to know, and I'll get out of your hair and I'll solve this witch problem for you. Okay, so we're going to mark forceful. So if we can invoke fast at some point, we'll be able to clear these and get a fate. Okay. Let me jump to the move here that I'm playing to so folks can follow along with what I'm doing. So we are facing a challenge here. So this is going to be tricky because that's neither easy or difficult for Ghost. We marked it. Is this especially hard? I think maybe it is, to just, again, because fictionally we've established that this isn't, there's some reason that this information is being concealed. So I think this is especially hard. So we're going to increase that by 1 difficulty. So it goes from tricky down here to difficult. And instead of cards, let's go ahead and roll this time. It's kind of interchangeable, but we've got the dice here, so we might as well use them. So we're going to roll 3d6 and drop the highest to represent the difficult part of this. Okay, I got a 2, 5, and a 6, so we will get rid of the 6. So 2 and a 5 is 7. So and a 7 is yes if. Ask your guide for a devil's bargain. So that's interesting that we've gotten this twice in a row now when trying to learn info about Esmer. It's just a coincidence, but I like fictionally I'm tying that into this being a complicated or difficult situation. So what is the complication here? The first thing that comes to mind is that maybe it's sort of like a double agent kind of thing. Like maybe the council in the Watchtower here is worried that Esmer has agents among them, or has somehow like hypnotized people to be on her side, or maybe has like magical scrying devices. So I think the council is paranoid. They're not sure who they can trust. So, okay, I think what the devil's bargain here is that this council member, I don't think we've named a council member. Let's do that. Let's say that this is a older woman, and her name, again, it's so stupid, but my go-to for names is just grabbing random syllables. So I think I'm going to name her Mora, which I got from Gray Moraines. Mora is a council member. I'm going to record her as a local detail. These local details are probably way too small to read on stream. I'm sorry, but I'll just say them out loud as I'm writing them. So Mora, I think what she says to represent this devil's bargain here is, we have to know we can trust you before we reveal any information. And the only way we can truly trust you is for you to take the binding oath. And Ghost is like, what's that? And I think this is a thing that's tied into the kind of weird fractal hypnotic pattern of this Watchtower, maybe. It's basically this kind of powerful magic that once you swear this oath makes it sort of physically impossible for you to take any action that goes against the will of the council. It basically it sort of forces you to do their will. And Ghost, I think, is very hesitant about this. So one thing, if you've never played a game that uses devil's bargains, to make devil's bargains juicy, you want to make them something that it's actually a really hard choice as to whether your character is going to accept that or not. Are you going to go through with this or not? So just unpacking that a little, I think, Ghost is saying, you're asking me to give up my free will to you. I just met you people. That's insane. I would never do something like that. And Mora's like, well, it's the only way we can trust you. And like you said it yourself, we're on the same side. We both want to see Esmer destroyed because, we can't have this evil witch, trying to do whatever it is she wants to do with the Magmamancer. We can't have that. So we have the same goal. So, if we really can trust you, then you should have no problem doing this. So, man, what is Ghost going to do? So, and I just want to talk, so we have the fictional level we're thinking about, but mechanically, If we don't take this devil's bargain, that makes this a no, and then we will have failed the first of 3 steps of this venture. So what we would likely do then is we'd be like, okay, we're going to have to go behind their back. We're going to have to break into the record room, right? But if we say yes, we get a success on this. I don't think Ghost wants to accept this bargain. I think it's too much for him. I don't think he's a very trusting person in general with all that's happened to him. So yeah, I think he's gonna, give more of this kind of steely-eyed glance and say, I follow my own path. I don't, I don't bind myself to anyone. If you won't give me the information I need, I'll find Esmer on my own. And Mora just kind of looks sadly and says, trust is so hard to come by these days, and I would advise you, perhaps this is probably a good quality you have. Don't give your trust freely to anyone. We each have to look out for ourselves. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. Yeah, okay. So I do. I'm gonna note as another local detail on the Watchtower card that they have this ability. I'm just gonna say binding magic, because that definitely seems like a thing that could come up again in the future. I also want to note too that we're getting pretty close to the end of time for this stream, but let's see if we can resolve this venture real quick and set Ghost on his way. So we failed the first step of the venture. We were not willing to swear the binding oath. I think I said this earlier, and I think this is what Ghost is going to do. I think he's going to try to break into the hall of the sort of central council chamber. He's going to wait till everyone's asleep. And try to get inside. Okay. So let's face another challenge for this. I think not fast, flashy probably, or focused. No one's really watching, and flashy kind of implies you're kind of, there's a bit of charisma and stuff going there. So I think this is focused again. And I think this is difficult. We're facing another difficult roll here. Let's do the Oracle this time. We're going to draw 2 and keep the worst. And sorry, let me just make sure I'm doing this right. State your desired outcome clearly. This is important to do. Now, an important thing to note when we're setting this up is this is not the final box of the venture. And so the venture is about, can we learn the secret of Esmer's whereabouts? So I think for this check, this is not about, do we learn the secret? I think this is just, do we successfully break into the chamber undetected? So let's find out. We got 2 yeses. That's great. And we do have to take the worst of those. So we're going to take the yes if, and we have yet another devil's bargain. And the suggestion here is yes if you achieve only partial success. So what does partial success look like in this case? I think it's that Ghost successfully breaks in, but he triggers some kind of alarm. So we're going to accept that devil's bargain. We're going to put a check mark in this box. We're going to say broke in but triggered alarm. So Ghost is in, but the guards are coming, so he has to be super quick to see if he can grab this information and get out. And this might be Ghost's exit from the last Watchtower. He might be planning a new journey very imminently here. Okay, so one final check. As he's frantically looking around, can he find where they have hidden or where they have kept? I think we said it was reports from scouts about Esmer's location. So let's face the challenge one last time. That was the desired outcome, I think. Can we find those notes? Fast. This has got to be fast, even though that's our worst thing. Oof. Okay. We do get to mark it, though. So that's great. And we do have some fate banked. So that is also great. We might need it. Okay, so fast is hard for us, so that makes it difficult. Is this especially hard? Um, you could definitely make a case that it is. But well, yeah, let's say that it is. They're not. They're not going to leave this out in the open, and we have the time pressure. So this is even harder than difficult. It is foolish. Oh, sorry, I'm scrolled off screen here. Foolish. So this is the worst possible situation we could face. But I'm doing this because I know that I have this banked fate down here. That's really hard to see when it's not red on the weight card, but I've got 3 banked fate. Okay, so let's go for it. In the interest of time, I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna roll 46 and drop the 2 highest. This is the most dice you ever need to roll at one time in Downcrawl. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, wow. 6665. Wow. Incredible. So even dropping the 2 highest, that is an 11. Whew. Man. Okay. We didn't even need to use our fate. Amazing. On 8 plus. Yes. And say how you succeed. Yeah. So, I think because, Ghost was recently wound up, he's at his most limber. And normally being fast is tough for him, but this alarm kind of, put a spike of adrenaline through him, or whatever the equivalent is for a living puppet. They probably don't have adrenal glands, but whatever. And his hunting instincts just kick in, and he's like scanning this room super efficiently. Where would I hide the files if I was trying to hide them? He sees this bust, that's kind of suspicious. He looks under it. There's this packet of info. He grabs it and he gets out. But yeah, I think the guards are coming for him now. And I think we see a shot of Topaz, as the sergeant's saying, like, that mainspring, he's betrayed us. We got to track him down. And Topaz just kind of, looks up at the high tower and maybe kind of like, puts a stone fist to his chest and kind of whispers under his breath, I hope your hunt goes well, Ghost. I hope you find your quarry. Yeah, and I think let's end this episode there with Ghost fleeing the last watchtower, hopefully to the Crimson Wasteland, and hopefully with this vital info that will help him find Esmer. Whew, man, what a final roll for this session. I 100% thought that was going to go disastrously. But you never know. You never know what the dice will tell you. Awesome. So there is a closing the session move. I'm going to skip that just in the interest of time because I'm going to stop right at the top of the hour. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching this stream. This was a super fun session. Lots of cool new stuff. I really like the last watchtower. There's lots of cool stuff there. We came up with some new places. We have a villain now. We have 2 villains who maybe are teamed up. So next time Ghost is going to be facing them. Maybe Topaz is going to come back. I really like Topaz. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. And yeah, this was Downcrawl. This was solo Downcrawl. Again, if you are interested in this and want to check it out, it's on BackerKit right now. It's the crowdfunding campaign's running till November 15th. So check it out. There's a lot of really cool extras you can get, like the Even Deeper deck, which we got some cool prompts from this time. Yeah, and I'm going to continue Ghost Story Thursdays at 5 p.m. for at least the next couple weeks. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, thanks so much for joining, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.